Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and a long time ago, I did a challenge on this channel that was making 1 million Pokeyen within one day. You can see, this account has 1 million Pokeyen, but only 14 hours of playtime. This was a one-shot, one-stream sort of attempt and challenge, and it was an absolute blast, but I've had 1 mil Pokeyen sitting on this account just kind of doing nothing for quite a while, and I want to fix that. You should never have Pokeyen just sitting there doing nothing. It should be making you more money, so I'm going to turn this account into a flipping account, into a flipping series. Specifically, one type of flipping challenge in series that I want to do though. You see, I have an extreme interest in 2012 Pokemon. Ever since they've existed really, but especially since they've added the catch year search filter within the GTL, you can now search for 2012 Pokemon specifically. Look for rare ones, expensive ones, see what ones have been listed recently, get yourself a nice Charizard, and also make some really insane money. Now, the 2012 market and 2012 Pokemon are really volatile. It's pretty freaking interesting, honestly. You can make some insane flips on these, and you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and pop this series off. We're gonna buy this Abra. The goal of this series is going to be to build myself a 2012 Pokemon collection, maybe even get the first 151 Pokemon. That's going to be a really, really long journey, but I'm also going to achieve all of those things only by actually flipping 2012 Pokemon. So that's going to be the goal, fellas. We're going to be flipping 2012 Pokemon in an attempt to actually collect 2012 Pokemon. And here's our first one. This Abra was bought for around, what, 150k or something of the sort. I'm going to sell it for 250k, try to make like a nice 80k on that flip. Honestly, pretty solid for the money out. I'd honestly be really, really happy with that. I saw it underlisted. Abra is not a super common 2012 Pokemon. It was pretty difficult to catch. Now, a scary thing is 2012 Pokemon, like I said, can make you some insane money, or you can sit on those Pokemon for a long time. This is going to be a very, very passive series in the background from my main account because it's just really tough to predict when this stuff will sell. There's not that many 2012 collectors out there at the moment, but I think this may go up in time. And I think I need to explain why would somebody even want to collect 2012 Pokemon? I get this question all the time, and I ask people the same question: why do people collect anything, especially old things? Why do people collect base set Pokemon cards? Those are extremely popular, right? There's a couple reasons. Number one, nostalgia. You know, people like to relive and appreciate those old cards they once played with. Number two, rarity. Number three, prestige. And number four, humanity. All of these things are just things that humans want. Humans want to acquire. Humans desire to own rare things that people don't have. It makes you feel special. It's just a very, normal part of the human experience. And I think 2012 Pokemon fall into all of this stuff as well. Fall into the norms of all collecting hobbies. If you do any sort of collecting, I think you totally understand why people would want to buy 2012 Pokemon. Do they have a pragmatic use? Not really. Do diamonds have a pragmatic use? Maybe some. I'm not a scientist, but usually they're just worn on fingers or on rings or necklaces, etc. Like, people like these rare things, and I think 2012 Pokemon will follow. So I see myself wanting to collect these before they get expensive. I think the 2012 market is probably one of the most underrated markets in all of PokeMMO. Having said this, I am not a financial expert. I am just playing a video game that I enjoy. I have no degree nor formal education on anything surrounding markets. Keep that in mind. I'm actually going to try to delay the release of this series to delay any sort of impact or effect on this market. I don't want to be listing or selling something. I might try to actually record this series in full. We'll get more details on that as I go on before I actually release a single episode, because I don't want anything to be affected. I don't want people saying, hey, Patrouski, people are only buying your flips or only buying these things because they see it in your videos and it has your they're not my OT, but you get what I'm saying. I don't want that to be the case. I really like to try to avoid that and get a genuine experience of PokeMMO for you guys. That's the point of tests like this, and that's the point of series like this, is to be replicated. I want you guys to see this and say, you know what? I can do that too. It takes a lot of game knowledge and takes a lot of patience and upfront capital. There's a lot of things, right? But it can be recreated to some extent. Make your own decisions, though. I always say, if you make money off of my videos, that's on you. Congratulations. And if you lose money due to my videos, I'm sorry. It's not my fault, but at the same time, you're responsible for all of your own financial actions, of course. All right, but enough preamble and just sort of spiel, yada yada, financial obligations, blah-diddy blah. Let's go ahead and actually find some more flips. Now, good things to check about 2012 Pokemon. It's kind of hard to know what Pokemon are good to check. You want to check Pokemon that were difficult to achieve back in 2012, or there weren't that many of. For example, things like Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee. You literally only got these from that one like dojo in Kanto, and that was it. The game was only Kanto back then. Snorlax is another good example. Snorlax was literally only gotten by those 2 Snorlaxes you got by waking them up with the Poke Flute. That's it. Chansey, really good example of a very difficult Pokemon to get back in 2012. It's a Pokemon that you had to catch in the Safari Zone. It was like a 5% chance to run into a Chansey, 5% chance to catch Chansey on top of that, and a 5% chance to like get a lucky egg. It was like stars aligned sort of situation. And other Safari Mons are good to check because of that. Things like Pinsir, things like Scyther, things like Kangaskhan, Tauros, 2012 Tauros. All of these things are really good to check. Now, I'm seeing a lot of them obviously accurately priced. You want to check the most recently listed stuff, what's been, listed recently. You can also do, now these are harder to sell, but I think that there will become a market for them, especially in the future. But you want to look at 2012 Pokemon with 1x31 IV. That can get really interesting. Let's go ahead and actually do that. So 31s across the board. And then if you do this and you put 1 here, the Pokemon only needs to have 1 matching IV to actually show up. So you can see what's the cheapest 1x31 Pokemon. 200k is the cheapest 2012 1x31. And then get some other stuff coming up here as well. Now, if you do this is something really interesting. If we change this number to a 2, I'm pretty sure there's only 1. Yeah, 1 or 2. Yes, this is actually my Sandshrew on my main account flipping, which is really funny. There's only 2 2012 Pokemons with 2x31 on the GTL that exist. That to me is really, really, really impressive, and I'm really curious to see what happens with the IV 2012 market. I think this is, extremely so much nicher than just collecting 2012s, like actually caring about the IVs and stuff. But I think it's important to keep an eye out. Let's check for starters as well. Things like Squirtle, things like Wartortle, Blastoise. You want to watch all of them. If I see a starter that's in my price range, I shouldn't. I should never, like I'm at 850k. That's going to be a hard part about this series is actually, flipping with that budget. But if I saw a starter, I would totally yoink that absolutely ASAP in my price range. So no starters are going to be available for me today. But I've got to find more things to actually get flips on. Executor, I don't think is going to have any margins. Let's check that Slowpoke. That's really cheap. No margins. Poliwraths, no margins. It's going to be really tough, guys, getting this off the ground. I feel like you absolutely need a lot of capital to do flipping with 2012 Pokemon since you have to risk a lot. Like with 2012 Mons, like stuff might sit there for a long time, and that makes it so you need more capital to actually be able to, keep buying stuff or spending or whatever, right? Like I could try to flip this 200k for 250, but it's kind of risky. It may not be great. I'm honestly okay with it though. I'm gonna buy this Dratini and I'm gonna get my money moving a little bit though. If I list this for, if I make a small flip here, I would not recommend anyone in a normal account or a normal thing outside of this series to make this kind of flip. Spending 250k or 200k to make like 30k on a flip, this is not worth it unless you're like stuck in a series like this where you're trying to make X amount of money. And you really need to get things off the ground, get things going, and kind of get that going. So that's worth for me. Not going to be worth for most other people, though. Dragonair, you can tell these are overpriced. So this is actually a really good point. When you see things like Dragonairs at 220k, or I guess 220k, Dragonite 310, Dratinis can always be leveled up into these Pokemon. So if Dratinis are cheaper than these, you can tell that either these Pokemon are overpriced or the Dratinis are underpriced. You cannot rebreed 2012 Pokemon because obviously that's going to get rid of the date. That'll ruin them, right? But you can level them up if you need to get the evolutions. So that's why pre-evolved forms, we look at, Charmander versus Charizard. The only Charmander on the GTL is 100 mil versus Charizard being 1.7 mil. That's unbelievable. That's a huge price difference. Now, is that Charmander accurately priced? 100 mil is pretty dang steep. Probably not. But at the same time, there are so few 2012. I probably should talk about why 2012 Mons are so rare. 2012 Pokemon are so excruciatingly rare for a couple reasons. Firstly, if someone has a Charmander, that means it was A, their starter Pokemon, and B, they didn't use it. How many people in 2012 picked their starter Pokemon and then didn't use them for the storyline, especially in PokeMMO? Very, very few people, especially Charmander fans, right? This is really, really rare. And then secondly and thirdly, you also have to think about the breeding system in PokeMMO. The breeding system in PokeMMO consumes Pokemon. It didn't for a while, but nowadays it does. So if a 2012 Pokemon exists, it means it was never bred, not once, since the game's release until current day. 11 years this Pokemon was never bred. Not only was it never bred, but the person who is the owner of the Pokemon is still actively playing, or at least came back to the game. Usually 2012 Pokemon either get bred away off into oblivion and lose their catch dates, or they get lost on dead accounts who just never log in anymore, inactive players, or they're on banned accounts from banned players. So there's just so many ways that 2012 Pokemon can be lost to the wind over time. You think about Pokemon cards being lost and destroyed and stolen, and that's why, they get damaged up, and that's why mint Pokemon cards are so extremely rare. It's kind of the same thing with 2012 Pokemon. Now, I'm going to keep looking for flips, and we see 2 Dittos here. This is going to be a risky flip, but I think this is perfect for this kind of series. There's 2 Dittos on the GTL, one for 850k and one for 380. Obviously, there's a huge price difference here. I don't think anyone's going to buy this 800k one, but this is too cheap as well, even though it's been listed for 10 days. 2012 Pokemon just take a long time to sell, which is why this series is probably going to take a really long time. Now, I could probably sell this for... Ooh, the question becomes, how much do I want to sell this for? And am I okay with risking that listing fee? The other issue with 2012 Pokemon, let me actually claim these and put these in my boxes in a sec. The issue with 2012 mons is like, I may need to relist them a couple times to sell. If I'm relisting something a couple times to sell, and I'm only making a 40k margin on it, if I relist that 2 times, and the cost is, 25k each time, well, bam, there goes my profit. Now I'm actually losing money. So you have to be kind of careful with that. Like, I do want to move my money, but I don't want to move my money so irresponsibly to where I'm losing money, obviously. There's also very few shinies. That's another interesting one, is how few 2012 shinies even exist. I think there's 2 or 3. There's 3 now on the GTL. This is a new one. I haven't seen this one. Gengar. Like, it's funny, when a 2012 shiny pops up on the GTL, that's a big deal. That's news. Like, that is like stream news. So there's Butterfree, Beedrill, and Gengar right now. The Gengar is new to me. I have not seen that one. That's super interesting, super cool to see. Okay, awesome. Let's head back to Ditto and figure out how I want to price this thing. There's one at 850k. Like, do I really want to price it at 800k? Is that too high? Will someone actually buy it for that price who's trying to collect Ditto? Like, that becomes the question. I think I'm gonna go for it, and then worst case scenario, it'll get lowered to like 500k or so. I think I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do 800k on the Ditto. I know it's really expensive, or, comparatively to where I bought it. That could be a super huge flip. We're going to sit on it like that. So now we have 240k Pokeyen, and we're sitting on 3 huge flips here. I think that's where I'm going to call it for today. I kind of want to spend this bit, but I want to be a little more careful. You know what we could do? We could add something to the collection, something that is cheap at the moment that may not be cheap in the future. Is an interesting one, like Slowking. How many Slowkings? I guess there's a fair bit of Slowpokes, honestly, on the GTL. Since yeah, honestly, there's a fair bit. Let's add 1 Pokemon to the collection. I think that's a cool way to call it. You'll actually end up seeing a lot of Safari caught Pokemon. Now, you can't tell they're Safari caught because the Pokeball back then doesn't actually tell you that. But things like Execute were Safari only Pokemon. Things like Slowpoke. Things like, I think, Cubone as well. I could be wrong. All these Pokemon were like farmed and caught in the Safari Zone. Horsey was farmed a lot. The reason why is because everybody was farming Chansey back in the day. So you just caught Pokemon kind of along the way. Now, things like Horsey were farmed back in the day because Kingdra was really good, and Staryu. There was a spot you could Super Rod fish at Cinnabar Island. There was a lot of reasons you would farm there. You would farm there for Star Pieces and Stardust, because that's how we figured out what hidden ability our Pokemon had back in the day. All this, like, cool nostalgia talk. And then, obviously, Staryu and Starmie, like 31 speed Staryus and Starmies were super expensive, super valuable. And then just good Starmies in general were super valuable. And then Kingdra was also quite valuable. So all those Pokemon combined were all super good to watch out for back in the day. Now, I'm looking at for a cheap mon. I might just pick myself up and Execute. I'm kind of surprised how cheap Execute is, but I do see it on the GTL a lot as well. I don't know if it's actually going to get like cheaper and such. So I'm looking for 1 Pokemon that is probably cheaper than it should be. And I'm not seeing a whole lot in these early pages, which just makes sense because obviously, they're not. They're pretty rare, right? You could argue Clefairy is a little rare, just because it's like you don't see them that often in Mount Moon. But like the issue is it's so early game that everybody actually probably got to Clefairy, that there actually probably is a decent amount of Clefairy. I think it's also one of those Pokemon that people like kind of go out of their way to catch. It's like the first rare spawn in the game to some extent. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and just buy the cheapest Pokemon possible. I'm going to go ahead and buy this Poliwhirl. It's 95k. You can't go wrong with that. If I regret it, need to resell it, you know, whatever, that works. But for now, I'm going to go ahead, and this is going to be the first addition to my 2012 collection in Poliwhirl, and we're going to wait for these flips to happen, and that's going to be it for the first episode of this pretty cool new series. Hopefully you guys are excited for it. Let me know by liking the video if you are excited for it and do want to see more. It lets me know what kind of content you guys are enjoying. Dislike if not, that's totally okay. Subscribe to the channel for daily PokeMMO videos. Follow me on Twitch for streams Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. ET. Discord's linked down below if you're interested in that. And if you want to go above and beyond and support my channel, YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, PayPal, and Venmo donations do help out a ton. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and make some Pokeyen, collect some Pokemon, have some fun. Hey, thank you so very much for watching until the very end of the video. That means the world to me. And if your name is listed here, you're the reason I'm able to do this in the first place by going above and beyond and supporting the channel via YouTube memberships and Twitch Primes. Thank you so much. Have a great day.